Yeah, this is my Magic Carp shirt.
Wait,
Hello.
the other shirt.
The other shirt.
Oh, the other shirt, the Cleaver.
Yeah. Woo!
Cleaver, everybody.
Viva.
Okay, we lost like TV.
Oh, they went to sleep.
Well, we're turning that back on. All right, I want to start with, this was like a Facebook post I posted in May. Okay, so this is like a little intro to EarthNight, like a little timeline, I guess. Okay, February 2012, having just finished Beard Wars, which was a little app where you took your beard out to battle on iOS. And we were putting the finishing touches on Puppy Wars. Beard Wars was not very popular. People didn't want to battle with their beards, but it was very popular with dogs. We had Puppy Wars. Those were like my first apps that I made. They're games, but they're like menu-based. They're not like a full simulation console video game. Okay, we, which was myself, Paul Davey, who was the artist who paints everything, Mark Bradshaw, a programmer, and Hypocrite, musician, decided to make a more serious video game for iPhone in what we estimated would be a 6-month project. Shortly after Zach Cohen and Alberto joined the team. Okay, so I got these together, which I think is cool. These were sketches from the first day that we were talking about EarthNight. We all took some substances, and then we were talking about, okay, we've never made a video game before, we have no idea what the hell we're doing, we'll try to keep it simple, we're gonna make a runner, because we know a lot about platformers, and runner seems even more simple than a regular platformer. So this, I think I sketched this. It's bad, but it's crazy how much it still really looks like this. But okay, so then I think I might have done that one. Maybe still me. I think this is probably Paul.
That really captures
sketched
it.
this. And this is actually very. So much of this stuff is not too different from the actual game. That is really damn close. So is this.
Yeah.
Our man Stan. We always wanted to have many dragons in the background. That was one of the videos I pulled up from today. The Cleaver. We were talking about how this is really close. That's crazy. Stanley, beautiful fluffy beard, dragons, side view, gorgeous. Sydney, so we didn't do any work on Sydney for years. We were just working on Stanley, and some people were like, oh, you guys put her in later. She was there on day one as a sketch. I guess we thought we were going to customize the characters a lot until we found out that they were going to be, 400 frames each. So anyways, that was day one sketches. Cool. And I guess before I go into the timeline, this, and we were talking about in the car right over here, this is actually getting me really excited because in a couple weeks, we're going to be done working on EarthNight. And we're going to start working on a new video game that we're internally calling Project Boomerang. More to come. But so soon we're about to do the first initial paintings that will inspire the rest of the game. But this was the first painting by Paul Davey after those initial sketches. It was probably a few weeks later. It was okay, what is this game going to look like? And it's crazy, Anyway, okay. 01/13, so about a year later, we showed off then titled Dragon Runner at MagFest, which sounds like maybe the IGDA host who introduced me was at maybe seeing EarthNight at that point, Dragon Runner. It was our first big public show, and it was pretty basic at the time, but people really enjoyed it. We were the most popular indie game in the showcase. I guess even before we got there, this is the first thing I put on a Hypocrite song in the background just to tape this video, to show people hey, check it out, we're running on a dragon. It's a guy, you can jump. It's just really exciting at the time. Yeah. I want to add this anecdote. This guy Jeff Batt, really intelligent guy, crazy investor, he said to me that all great things in humanity, not to say that EarthNight is a great thing, although it's the greatest thing that I've ever made, start with a moment of hubris. by the creator, where they think that like it is way easier to do the thing that they're about to do than it is. Had I been able to go back in the future and tell myself that it would take me 8 years to finish this game and ship it on all platforms, that I'd be working on a runner for 8 years of my life, I'd be like, okay, I'm done, I'll stop, I'll quit, I'll work on something sweeter. Or I don't know, different, I just don't even know. But so, this like, the fact that I thought that I could go from that video and those sketches to a full completed video game in 6 months was just like, you know, laughable, right? Like not even close. And so we're about to do the same thing with our next game, I think, and I'm like just comfortable and okay with it. We're talking about a 5-year full-time run rate, and like I guess like realistically now, I guess we've gotten deeper into what it's going to be that seems unrealistic. So, but I'm just going to dive in and go for it because 5 years in, we'll have something so amazing that we'll be like, okay, however many years it's going to take to finish it, like we'll go for it, and we'll just do whatever it takes to get it done. Kind of inspiring story, kind of crazy stuff. This was like a few months later.
Hey, Zach.
I'm sending this to Zach.
Show you.
Zach is this animator in Israel, and we were like starting this collaboration. Nobody on the team never done anything like this before.
Build the game because it looks absolutely amazing.
Paul had never painted any animations before.
Paul painted over.
That's the first
all the
animation
frames that you sent over. Hopefully, you can see how awesome it looks.
Yeah. That animation's not actually in the game. Samuel's got like a sword now and stuff. It's still just like crazy that that's, I don't know, the first animation of the game.
Wow.
Crazy. Okay. Late in 2013, I thought about giving up. The project had gotten larger than originally intended, and I was clearly in over my head. We changed the name to EarthNight due to a copyright issue with a large military vehicle of the same name, Dragon Runner, if you guys don't know about that. In January of 2014, we showed in a 2-hour slot at IGDA, and I gave a 3-minute presentation to a room of about 100 people. I thought it went okay, I guess, but 2 weeks later I got an email from Nick Sutner and John Sanders from Sony saying they'd seen my game, and they were wondering if I'd be interested in bringing it to PlayStation 4. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, you guys got it, like, whatever. I had just completely lucked out that we were building it in Unity. When I made the decision to start making this game in Unity, I had no idea what I was doing. And like, had I not, none of this crazy stuff that happened to us would have been possible. So like, kudos to Unity. And I don't know how many of you guys are working in Unity, but like, if you're not working in Unity or Unreal, like, I don't know, Jonathan Blow thinks it's like crazy to use a game engine, but these days, I don't know. Garbage collection is going to be a thing of the past.
This is a conversation about garbage.
But you know, we're talking about how in 5 years, performance has been a big deal with EarthNight throughout its whole life. There's more high quality 2D art in EarthNight than like any other game ever made. Maybe there's like 1 or 2 other games out there that have just more texture memory. I might hold a video of like going through all the character frames, which is fun. And we brought things down. We've like made things smaller and things that like you wouldn't notice being in low resolution. We've tried to make low resolution, but it's still just like so much art. It's insane. Okay, so Nick asked us if I could have a build ready on PlayStation 4 for E3 2014. And we busted our asses, we made it happen, and we debuted our first trailer for EarthNight as a PlayStation 4 game. It was a true childhood dream come true. That's also when we first hooked up with Hitoshi Sakimoto, who would end up collaborating on a song for the game. He did like Final Fantasy Tactics, which is kind of crazy.
That's amazing.
Pretty amazing, yeah. His orchestral song is the credits song when you beat the game, and like Chipcrit did a chiptune version of his song. Okay, in 2014 we attended our first PlayStation experience with EarthNight. We got great press coverage, got great feedback, and had a blast. In 2015 we attended our second E3 with Sony. We got written up in Game Informer magazine, childhood dream come true, ridiculous. I also ran into Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy who made Zelda and Mario, and like everything in Nintendo, in the bathroom. We had a very like awkward, funny moment. His handler, I was like, can we take a picture? His handler was like, no, and he didn't speak English, but he was just like, it was okay, and we took a bathroom selfie. If you search my Facebook, it's there. Okay, back out in 2015, we attended more events with Sony, including Indiecade and PlayStation Experience, but finishing EarthNight still felt beyond my grasp. At that point, it had all been part-time work by me and everybody else on the team. I guess Paul Davey at some points in it was full-time, but it was kind of like a side gig. That's another important thing to talk about. So making a video game costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like an absurd amount of money. I never paid myself over the 8 years that this happened, and it still just cost a fortune because I paid everybody else. I started a business called Mainline Delivery in 2008. What year are we in? Oh, God.
2019.
In 2008, there was a delivery service for the suburbs of Philadelphia that was also the same year that Grubhub started. They're worth like billions of dollars, so I clearly failed compared to them. But it worked out great. We had like hundreds of drivers, and we were in 4 states by the time it all ended. Okay, so as a preface for 2016, okay. MLD was really, Mainline Delivery was getting busy and crazy, and the games dev took a backseat for a little. 2016, we didn't do many events. I was trying to focus on both companies and was feeling overwhelmed. At the end of the year, Square became interested in buying Mainline Delivery, and Sony invited us back to PlayStation Expo. I spent most of the last month of Mainline Delivery's existence prepping for PSX, and then left for California a week before closing. PSX went unbelievable for us that year. We got written up by Engadget in what I still think is our best press to date. Thanks, Jess Condit, amazing. And also a week later, the president of Sony PlayStation, Shuhei Yoshida, played EarthNight on a Japanese TV show. Days after getting home from PlayStation Expo on December 7th, we closed the sale of Mainline Delivery to Square. My business partner took a job at Square, and I opened up a CleaverSoft office in Narberth, right outside of Philly, to work on EarthNight full time. This is when I hired Adam Nash. Thank God, oh my God. Part-time at first, but then full-time. Without Nash, we would never have finished this thing out, and I owe him a huge debt of gratitude for quitting his job and coming on this journey with me. I will show this video. So with the Engadget article, they posted this video, which I've just always loved. Stick that all out. It's like, yeah. I said a year for like 5 years. I remember doing that. Okay. 2017, we attended PSX for the last time at the end of 2017, where I promised we would be out before the end of 2018, no matter what, to a bunch of PlayStation fans. Some of them were still like really pissed about it for some reason. Okay. July of 2018, my daughter was born. And she ushered in a new normal for like work-life balance. I thought I'd take like 2 weeks off and then get back to it. Sleep deprivation was true torture. I was out of commission for months, and then like was not back to full capacity for like 6 months. Okay, so then yesterday I posted this on May 22nd. 7 years and 3 months from when I started, we finished EarthNight. The game was content complete, everything, levels, all of it. And we sent it off to Sony for first submission. I said, it feels like I'm handing in the biggest homework of my life. Coming soon, a brand new trailer with a late summer release date, a surprise big event, and we'll be attending with EarthNight, an album release of the soundtrack, and an actual release on PS4 and Steam. Thank you to everybody, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So since then, okay, we went to E3. We got invited to E3 by Indiecade. We've never been picked by Indiecade. And we've submitted like a bunch of times. I guess maybe the show and tell like the original time. Then since then, like Sony just like kept taking us to Indiecade events, and we kind of like made friends with all of those people. We're not like weird and like indie enough, I think, to like win awards or something like that. But I think that I don't know, we have like more of a mass appeal than a lot of those games, which I think is cool. A lot of indie games are about like, some funny attention here, but are about like a mechanic and like kind of going intense on that, and we're doing that for our next game, guys. EarthNight's not that. EarthNight's taking a lot of mechanics you've seen in other games, and kind of a fresh take on it, but nothing like too insane, and then just like delivering at a high level, like kind of all across the board. Okay, so we went to E3, where I told a friend who I had made, who I just knew from like going to these events. He was at like the first PlayStation experience with me. I guess I feel comfortable saying his name. His name is Will Schur, and he made a game called Manifold Garden that I really encourage you guys all to play. It's amazing. I got a 9 out of 10 on GameSpot. I'm super jelly. And I played the whole thing. I was all like nervous about playing it because I know him and respect him so much. I think he's the man. I was like, oh, am I going to like this game? I loved it. Really, 2 thumbs up, high like the chest. But anyway, so I said to him, he's like, what's going on? I was like, oh, we just submitted the PlayStation. We found out when we got to E3 that we failed for the second time. And like the first day of E3, we were like, oh god, we failed. We went to E3 to try and talk to Nintendo. I had like a budding relationship with this guy, Kirk Scott, who is the indie like account manager for Nintendo. He's kind of like what Nick Sutner used to be from PlayStation before he left, and he like loves indies and cares about it. Wants to bring them a platform. I know somebody, this guy right here, asked me like, how did you get a Nintendo Switch dev kit? You gotta convince Kirk Scott that you're like good enough. What's her name? It's the new Kristen. There's a new girl there who used to work at Sony, now works at Nintendo doing the same job. She's also very cool. So we met with Kurt, and he was like, break your deal with Sony. Because like I can't give you any support unless you launch simultaneously on Nintendo Switch. And I was like, oh god, I'm nervous about that. What do I do about that? And then talking to Will, I was like, what are you planning on doing? He said, we're launching on PlayStation 4 and Steam. And he said, well, that was like a great idea like 4 or 5 years ago. That's like a really dumb idea now. So go home and like figure out something better. And so the night that Kirk told me to like, I probably shouldn't say that anyway. He didn't say break my deal. He said, get out of it if you can.
Yeah. He said, we'll contract one more time.
Yeah. So it turned out, again, like dumb luck. Not that we always weren't like showing up, but there was just a lot of dumb luck, for sure. My contract with Sony could be terminated by either party 5 years from when it was signed, which was March of 2014, and it was March of 2019. So my exclusive PlayStation contract was
expired.
Yeah, it was expired. Because and had we released earlier, which I wanted to do, was desperately trying to do, then like the next thing that happened would not have happened. So we came home, we just like tried to talk to everybody we knew. My wife actually was the one who said, well, have you called Nick Sutner? He was the guy who originally signed us into this PlayStation contract. And we tried to talk to Xbox, who is currently like signing lucrative deals for indies to be on Game Pass. And we tried to talk to Epic, who is signing very lucrative deals to not launch on Steam, which a lot of people are very like upset about. But like, from an indie developer's perspective, who's sunk a ton of time and money into a game, the idea of getting money up front is just like incredibly valuable. And we talked to Apple. And Xbox like wasn't really interested. Epic like kind of never got back to us. And Apple was like, we think this would be a great fit for this new thing we're doing, Apple Arcade. We had been working for over 5 years. Well, it was originally an iOS game on a game with a controller. We actually, like, gradually over the years went from it being a 2-button game, just the left and right side of the screen, to being a game you play with a controller. And the game is better if you play with a controller. Sorry, Apple. But you can play on all Apple devices on Apple Arcade with PlayStation 4 and an Xbox controller. It's very cool. But so we had to. The Apple deal was contingent on making launch, which was September 19th, about 5 or 6 weeks ago. We had to be approved before then, which was an intense process. And yeah, so then after that Facebook post, this
collection of awesome games covers so many genres and playsets. So everyone in the family can count on finding games they love on Apple Arcade.
Stage,
we are really excited to
a
show
little
them
bit?
to you today.
Just like a little bit.
First up,
It counts.
It does count. We were actually like, where's the kid thing? We were like upset about that because, not upset, it was amazing. But we were kind of under the impression that this segment was going to debut.
We're bringing you 100 groundbreaking new games. Let's see how much we can get through in 100 seconds. First up is Hot Lava. It takes the childhood game of The Floor is Lava and turns it into an online competition with players around the globe. You can even use the gyroscope on your iPhone or iPad to look around inside the game. EarthNight is a beautiful side-scrolling runner, and every single element is hand-painted. The levels generate randomly too, which means every time you pick it up, you're playing something completely new.
We were kind of hoping that was going to be at the iPhone debut, but still, like, amazing and absolutely awesome. And then, like, also, Nintendo, we told Nintendo we would launch simultaneously, so we were, like, going nuts trying to get that together. Okay, I'll back up a little bit. We told Apple after they were like, hey, we're interested in this, and we need to have it ready for, 55 devices, touch controls for iPhones, iPad, Apple TV, and Mac. They all need to sync, and, like, has all these requirements, and, like, it has to be done in, like, 2 months. And we came back to them and we're like, I don't think we can do that. Like, that sounds way too crazy. And they're like, all right, well, management already signed off, so we're gonna, like, hook you up with these guys, and they'll help you. And that was when we got introduced to our first, what we called at the time, boarding house, but now we call them specialty houses. They exist, they're out there. They're, like, kind of expensive, but they are just, like, groups of devs to do specific things. So, like, this specialty house that Apple hooked us up with works on Apple porting and only works on Apple devices. We ended up contracting with a company called Plastic Fern Studios, who we're still working with, like, dealing with bugs tonight. They're screwing up at the end, but we love them. We really love them. They're wonderful. Who helped us with the Switch and, like, finalizing the PS4 version. We got approved on Switch. We're hopefully handing in our PS4 build tomorrow or tonight. And then we made it. With the help of them, we got out. We got an 80 on Touch Arcade, which I thought was really nice. The thing they didn't like was the touch controls. They felt they were, like, kind of slapped on at the last minute, but they were. We only had 3 weeks to do it. We have an updated touch controls coming out really soon. They did say that they thought it was, great with the controller. Okay, this video, do a little more video show and tell. This was on the first MagFest. This was like,
Me too, man.
some guy, and then every time we showed it, people were like, this is cool, this is great, this is fun.
You know, yeah, that's what I always think. It was like,
This was like the original kind of thing we started over. This was the first Sydney animation. Yeah, so Paul Davey, who paints everything in the game, everything you see on the screen, he had never animated anything before. He was, like, doing sketches of guys, and a different guy named Zach would animate it in black and white, and then Paul would paint every frame. But Sydney, inspired by his little sister, he painted every single frame.
Dragon pieces going. Oh my god, it's the first time ever 2 dragons. I love it.
We cut 2 dragons, didn't work. We were, like, always worried about performance. I just saw this, I thought it was funny. Oh my god. Okay, so, like, native Unity, we started in Unity 3 or something.
God.
So, like, there was no native 2D anything. We used a thing called 2D Toolkit, which we're still using to this day. It'll sprites and, like, just messes and scratches and sprites all the time. I found this video of Stanley. It's the first time we did dust puffs. Never farting those. We had fun. Like, this happened one day.
Oh my
I
God.
woke up and was just like,
Trippy.
what's happening? Yeah, people say that we're, like, on drugs. People, like, comment like, oh, drugs, the game or something. Like, I'm like, you guys haven't even seen the crazy shit we've seen. I just, like, this is early on. This is like, I just really like this because this was, like, one of the first times, like, a really dynamic thing happened that I didn't expect. So I, like, hit that guy, which, like, knocked those things out. I'm, like, trying to pick him up, and, like, it's splashing, and, like, don't get him for a while. It's still flopping around. It's still there, like, still haven't gotten it. So I was just like, oh wow, that's crazy. I still to this day, like, which is cool, have unexpected things happen to me in EarthNight. There's like 18 quintillion seeds which are only made up of like hundreds of hand designed pieces, but just like different things. I'm still surprised. Things surprise me, which is cool. This is a quick flip through of all the Stanley frames. Some weren't painted at the time of this video, I guess. I'll listen to that in the background. I see you. But yeah, there's a lot of frames. Like an absurd amount of frames.
Flames.
We run most animations at 18 frames a second. You know, like some other games, like pixel games, or even like that game Mask of Semblance is like kind of local. They run at a lower frame rate. I'm just like all about very high frame rate animations, especially when you're going high res. It just like makes it look beautiful. Yeah, Paul did all of these on his own, which is insane. Yeah, I guess I'll look at these frames. Yeah, so back to a game costing a lot of money. I just had this other source of income that I poured everything into, taking myself into debt to finish this game. And I think that's like a common story among indie devs. A lot of people also go and get funding. We're gonna get funding, I think, for the next game. I'm not gonna do it again. But when we had nothing, and when you have nothing, you just have to make a vertical slice. We're just like always making builds and showing them off everywhere, and that's just like kind of how we progress up this crazy ladder, to get here. Alright, did on stage. Okay, so I wanted to show some sweet art. Paul just like also got better over time. This is like some of our latest bum art. It's ridiculous.
Holy smokes, now that's awesome.
Yeah, Paul's an artist. Paul's an artist. This one is just like one of my favorites. I'm gonna get this like on the wall in our new office, giant. Just like, Jesus Christ, I love that. This was the original like splash screen. It's been around for a long time. Paul definitely spent a long time doing all the lighting on this. I'll say something about Paul. Paul Davey, a Jamaican dude, really cool guy. Definitely the most talented person I've ever worked with. He paints fantastical creatures just like bathed in light. The light is like its own layer, if you can see it in Photoshop. But especially like on this image, you can really see, so it's like another shot. Vermeer, who's like one of the most famous painters from the 1600s maybe, was like the first artist to paint anything ever bathed in light. And we generally don't like see things lit like this. You only see it through a lens, and that was like around when lenses were first invented. And like it turns out that he was cheating. He was using a thing called camera obscura to make like a photo box to trace, which is crazy. One of the most famous painters in the world was cheating, although I think it's even cooler because it's like he engineered that. But Paul, from a very young age, without any formal training, was just able to actually paint the way Vermeer paints in a fantastical setting. He's obviously not looking at a picture of this to do this. These are ridiculous. Oh my God, Stanley. Sydney, Jesus. And then, oh yeah, she looked great. Another important thing to say. So we didn't show off Sydney for years into it because she was just the second character we made. And I guess I'm embarrassed to say that I never really thought about it early in development. But truth of the matter is Paul was just representing himself in his characters. And I was not some big corporation. I was someone who was making a piece of art with him and wanted him to express himself. I just never really thought twice about it. But once we started showing off Sydney, and she was really like fully there at the beginning. It was like part of Stanley frames, or they were sketches or whatnot. But once you could really see her, I really got to see at a lot of these events how much representation matters to people. Like grown women crying. And so a big part of our journey has been that representation really matters, and we're out here like featuring a little black girl as our protagonist, and she's the coolest character in the game, like has the most powers. And like that's something we should see more and more, and I think we're going to continue to do as a studio. This is like my favorite image of late, called this for the launch of Apple Arcade. Sydney loosely cosplaying as Sonic. If you played EarthNight, like everybody's in there, which I've like always wanted, just like a group shot. And everybody's in there from like a different perspective, which I think is really cool. Okay, and then my last show and tell will be, okay, so things ended with Nintendo in a very cool way, which was that they showed this trailer with a thing called Indie World. And that was amazing. That was probably like the first time that a million people saw it. Sure, shout out to this guy, Josh, who made this trailer. Just like amazing. We were making all of our trailers in-house prior, and we hired this guy. His name's Josh Haller. It's called like Josh. Josh. Everyone's got cool names. Madahan, Shippercrit, Josh, Nash. I'm the only one who's just like, my name's Rich. I don't have a cool name yet. Everyone else has cool names. All right, I'll show on the screen. Let me show anything else. Other things I want to say. So again, back to like the hubris of thinking I could do this. I kept just like, oh, we're gonna make a pretty basic iOS game and just like find our footing. And it was like I got pressure from outside, like, okay, now you're making a PlayStation 4 game. I was like, holy shit, I'm making a console game. I have to make it to be a level that I think it should be. And then all of a sudden, like, here we are back. Like, Apple's like, we want console quality games on iPhone, and we started to launch on console, so we won't have to circle back. But I was always just pushing it to try and be what I thought was a good game, which was hard, because it's hard to make a good game. And, you know, trying to find talented people. In my first business, and also in this business, I totally found that dealing with people was the hardest thing. I ended up firing a programmer that sucked, that like rocked the whole team, and like things happened to all of these people over the course of these 8 years, and I was like, I don't know, less of a father figure at CleaverSoft, but definitely like a brother. We talk about how we're all like on a ship, and like so, you know, one person gets sick, one person has a kid, it matters to everybody. So that was just like, I don't know. I wouldn't have expected that after 8 years that I would say the hardest thing about making a video game was dealing with the other people who I was making a video game with, but that's just still the case. And yeah, we did it. It's coming out on Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 if we like get approved on this bill before the which is not in as of right now. And yeah, yeah, just like other important lessons. A slice of a watermelon is bigger than a grape. Like we just like gave away percentages. I gave away percentages left and right. Like business people think that I like gave way too much percentage away to my team. Like my father thinks that, which is insane. Who would say like that, like, oh, CEOs make too much money. I'm like, yeah, Dad. I'm not CEO, so I'm not on the board. Like that's my position. So like, shouldn't I get paid not as much as like not that much more than the rest of my team who also dedicated years of their life to it? So I went the route again. It's like I could afford it for a while to pay everybody like a living wage on top of for whatever percentage of their time they were giving the game. On top of to everybody who did a significant contribution, they got percentages of revenue of the game to the company. So not even like the profits, just like we got paid by Apple, and I just paid everybody out of the team. I was reading a funny article about how it's not a great way to go because then your company doesn't have any money to like make another game. But I think it's cool that like everyone's going to get enriched, and I think that by nature of actually joining the Ship Games Club and Ship Games platforms, that we're hopefully going to be able to raise some money to make the next game. I think that seems realistic. Seems like it's happening already. Never give up, never surrender. I thought about giving up a lot. Like there were down times for sure. I was just like, I'm never going to finish this. Like, how am I ever going to finish this? We talked about the other day how had we not sold my other company, it probably just wouldn't be done now. Like maybe we'd never get finished. So there were just all these like lucky stones along the way. But like we were always putting ourselves out there. Any like big event, somebody said, hey, would you be there? We were there. If there was ever any opportunity, we jumped at it and we pushed for it. You know, like I feel like other teams could have crumbled under the like, can you have your build ready for E3 in a month thing. Like we did, we got it there. And yeah, I thought just a few months back there was like no way in hell I was going to make another video game, and now we're like spinning up a new team to make a new video game. So it can happen, and I don't know. I guess that's it. Questions? You guys want to talk about anything?
So you said that, of course, you changed the name due to copyright reasons, but specifically, where did the name EarthNight come from?
Yeah, my buddy Dave Yaron, who is like a spiritual guide to the game, on day one actually, in that like sketch meeting in like a loft in my house, said EarthNight, that like the final world would be EarthNight. And so for very early in the game, we cut stuff, but the original layout was the thermosphere, which is like a realistic layer of the atmosphere, then the mesosphere, and the chemosphere, which is like magic, and then the stratosphere, and then there was going to be a choice between landing on the ground in like water world, desert world, and city. Yeah, and we spent a lot of time on water world, but we ended up cutting that whole, which was Earth at night, like being on the ground. And so, yeah, so it was like, so you can have a name, like we're named EarthNight, and so it's like a music festival. There's a music festival called EarthNight. You can like be named the same thing, but like the military apparently is like very litigious, and they were like, yeah, I was like, don't be Dragon Runner, it's not good yet. And we wanted to be kind of more epic than that anyway, so yeah, EarthNight was always the name of the final world. And then everyone's always calling us an endless runner because the genre of auto runners is all about being endless. And I just, like as a way to like stick it to those people, it's like, hey, the name of the game is the end.
Your game, it doesn't have an end, it's just a long.
It's not, so you can beat it in under 8 minutes. The Speed Knight trophy is 8 minutes. You have to beat it in 8 minutes. Only like 4 or 5 people in the world have done that so far.
Oh.
But I've been doing all these like estimates now, so people have beaten it. 19 people have beaten EarthNight in the world out of like the 20,000 or so that have played. Sort of like 1 in 1,000 right now. But I kind of expect it to take longer than 5 weeks to beat EarthNight. I think it takes you about 20 to 40 hours, depending on how good at video games you are, platformers, to like get good enough to take a run to beat the game. The game only takes like 15, 20 minutes to beat.
So it's not the length of the game, it's just how big.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to kill you all the time. And it's just like kind of how it's built. It's like it's a death trap. Yeah.
Progression.
There's progression, yeah.
Through each run.
Right, yeah. So not only do you kind of level up in your heart, like learning about how the game works and the worlds and whatnot, but you also unlock power-ups that help you along your way. And kind of like that combination eventually gets you there. Yeah.
What made you decide to make it procedurally generated, and how do you think that affected the amount of content you had to create and how difficult creating content was?
Yeah, no, it was a huge pain being a procedurally generated game. We call it hand-designed procedural generation because besides some elements which actually do just straight up kind of like randomly happen, most of the game is made out of meticulously hand-designed pieces. For years, it was just full layouts. I did like full layouts of dragons, and it was Spelunky that made us change. Like I was kind of like after all these years, I was always just trying to like make it the best game that I thought it could be, that I wanted to play. And so like mid-development, we got really into Spelunky, which I thought was just like the most genius game. We borrowed tons of elements from it, and it was like if this game is actually going to be good, great, then it's got to be a game that you can play forever. And the only way to do that, is to be procedurally generated. The jump from going from like the first dragon that was a full layout that we liked to having a fully procedurally generated first dragon, which is made of like 15, I think it's made of 16 pieces now, that was good. It was good every time. So like the most basic dragons are made of 15 pieces, 5A, 5B, 5C chunks, and then they procedurally stitched together with rules. But the most basic dragon has about 125 ways it can lay out. So like the first world seeds before dragons is 125 to the fourth, which is like 3.9 million seeds. And so the first time we got a dragon that had 125 layouts with pieces that felt good every time, it just took like a year. It was crazy. And then kind of like kept, pushing on that. And I didn't even get to do we call them chunks, all of the chunks that I wanted to do. Although like maybe we'll do more over time. But the coolest part about EarthNight, I think, is that, and it's also the coolest thing about Spelunky, is that despite it being procedural, there are all these rules. And once you start to figure out these rules, you can do some really crazy stuff. Just like, for example, in World 1, the Red Dragon, even though it's different every time, there's always one warp that takes you to World 3. It's always there, no matter how it lays out. And there's all sorts of stuff like that.
Talked a lot about going to different events. What would you say is your favorite event that you attended or shown at?
I guess I have to go PlayStation Expo just because, man, is it awesome. I don't think they might have even like paid for flights, but they like put us up in hotels and you don't have to do any work. You show up and like your booth is there and you just like pop a hard drive in with your build. We even showed up to one where we had a booth with like walls of EarthNight art. We were all just like losing our minds about that. And I don't know, a lot of other events, there's a lot of people who are like going there to critique a video game, which is like, there's a lot of people who go to PAX to go see every indie game, which is cool, and for them to like critique them in like a negative way, which is cool. Critique is good, and it's really important as a designer to be able to listen to a shitload of it and pick what's good out of it. I'm like a crazy like read all the comments guy, and you have to know like what to ignore and what is actually good feedback. But PlayStation Expo is just fans, just PlayStation fans, super fans who are like, we love PlayStation, like PlayStation, and that was really cool because they're just like, oh, you're a PlayStation game. There was no distinction between indies and at least during our time at PlayStation and like other games. It was just like, these are PlayStation games, and so that was just really cool to have. A lot of people just very excited about playing the game on a platform. And it was a party. Like concerts, there was like a No Man's Sky concert one year. It was crazy.
So you mentioned that the development timeline was way longer than you initially expected.
14 and a half
Yeah.
That's bad for the next
How
game.
did
If
the
we're thinking 5 years, that's like, we'll be dead.
I got shown how the fans reacted. They were, frustrated that it was taking longer. But how did, Sony and, other developers and execs, respond to, I don't want to say the lack of progress, but the rate at which things were going?
Nick Sutner, who was like the godfather of indie games, if you don't know anything about him, check him out, gave this whole talk at GDC about how platforms are people, which is true. Like, at the time when we were interacting with Sony's indie team was 4 people. And they all cared about indie games. So it was really just more about what people were at what company at what time, who cared or not. So like Nick left Sony to take a job at Oculus to do what he was doing for Oculus. And that was like a devastating blow to me. We were all like, oh my God, we're devastated. And then we got a new account manager who was pretty cool, who like kind of cared. And then like she left, and then we got somebody who didn't care at all. And then it seemed like Sony didn't care about us at all anymore. And I don't think it had to do with the fact that we were taking so long. It was just that they didn't have people at the platform who cared about indies at that point who were like building an indie thing. Nick like built this like love of indies department in Sony, and they're about to do it again. I don't know if you guys saw, they announced that Shu Yoshida is now the head of Indie Outreach. He just like loves indie video games, cool guy, and I've like partied with him twice. And he knows about EarthNight. He played EarthNight on television and like played at our booth at a PlayStation Expo. So he's now about to be the indie outreach person for them because they're in a position, it's all just about money, right? So like Sony was making PlayStation 4, they had a ton of AAA games, so they needed indie games to fill out their ranks, so they got really into indies. They were showing indies at E3. Then all of a sudden they saw that like, big AAA games are selling much better for them. Okay, we have a lot of indie games, we don't care anymore. Then Nintendo switched around. Then Kirk, who, used to be more of like, worked like a different job at Nintendo, became like the guy where there was the indie evangelist kind of thing next under Nintendo. Then all of a sudden Nintendo really cared about indies because they see they're selling really well on their platform. All of a sudden now Nintendo switches to indie platform. Then out of nowhere, Apple was like, we care about indies now. And Stadia is like, oh, we care about indies now. Now Sony's about to put out PlayStation 5, they're only gonna have, 5 games to launch it with. And, they're gonna want 25 indie games on there at launch, and all of a sudden they care again. Yeah, I think everybody in the industry has seen games go over schedule. And I think that anybody in the industry who looked at us would say, these guys are inexperienced, they've got a good game, they've got the drive to finish, but I don't think Sony ever looked at us and was like, oh, they're definitely gonna be on time, like no problem. Yeah.
Are you able to talk about like what is in that like PlayStation deal or Nintendo deal? When you talk about like having a relationship, like what is it? What did you expect to get? What were you getting?
So yeah, Sony never gave us like any money. There's a thing called Pub Fund, which is like a thing you can apply for where it comes out of sales first, unless if they like really like your game, and that would be like them funding you a little bit. But it was just a standard deal of, which I think is standard across consoles now, a 30-70 split. But in exchange for me being exclusive or saying that I was going to be exclusive to PlayStation 4, they took us to these events, right? Like I was at, I guess we did our third E3, 5 Indiecades, 4 or 5 PlayStation Expos, like none of that would have happened without Sony. And then Nintendo, again, no money, 70-30 split, was like, if you launch simultaneously with us, we can give you the support to put you in this, it's called an Indie World, like Nintendo Direct video. And I think they're going to continue supporting us for launch. They just posted our release date trailer and posted it on social media. And Sony, out of nowhere, after like not hearing from them at all, was like, oh yeah, hey, we'll post it. And like we'll do a blog post. And now actually that like we're launched on Apple Arcade, and we're also going to be on Nintendo Switch. They're like starting to care a little bit again. I guess we'll see.
It's gonna be total chaos if the publishing thing like.
Yeah. I think, so like in talking about the next game, we're going to build it in Unity, because that's all the experience we have. And like, building in Unity means you have 9,000 people behind you who are working to make sure that you're on every platform in the future. I do not know what the landscape's going to be like in 5 years. I'm hesitant to sign any kind of exclusivity deal to anybody. And, you know, when the time comes, I need to be more prepared than I was this time, even though it worked out to like pivot from whatever I thought I was doing, you know, to what I will be doing. But all of you guys who are learning to make video games now, like, I am positive that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the appetite for high quality indie games played on a screen with a controller or played on a device or VR or AR is just going to be like voracious and more than second down. There's going to be lots of crazy platforms who are looking for content. And I guess now, like, that's the way to launch, if you can. This maybe was some sweet spot, and this was, you know, we were talking about people who were upset about Apple Arcade. Like, Apple Arcade just gave 100 developers, mostly who were indies, you know, there are some big games, really great deals to be on their platform, you know, and have been very cool to work with, and are not forcing people not to be on other platforms. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Google Stadia is about to launch, that completely shake things up. There's going to be a lot of services like this where they're offering content for a fixed price, and they're going to continually want new content and be willing to pay for that. So if you're making games, I think it's still good. And there's talk of like the indie apocalypse. I don't know.
I think everyone's just going because there's so many games that is reached an unprecedented amount.
Yeah, there's definitely an unprecedented amount of games. But there's also an unprecedented amount of people to play them who have, you know, different interests and have different devices.
So this is actually about the Discord, less about the game, but why do you keep saying that the moon is full tonight? Because I was driving and I realized that I think my soul is a moth. I was just like staring at the moon the whole time.
The moon in EarthNight matches the real world moon.
That is actually really cool. How does that
And
happen?
it will work for like 37 more years. Off by a few days, maybe. We'll
It's an
update
algorithm.
it. Anyway, the moon is full tonight, and when the moon is full in the real world, every dark night, there's a special dragon, the moon dragon moving around.
This is a quick comment based on what the last answer and then a question. Quick comment is that a couple of years ago I went to GDC and saw a talk from Brandon Sheffield of Microsoft Games talking about how they've never had a hit for 5 years and have kept the business going. And it's always been just going on new platforms. Like they get a new platform deal, then they update that game, then they get a different platform with that game, and they update it again for a different platform. So what you're saying is absolutely true. And as more and more platforms keep coming, more and more of those deals will keep happening as long as there's money. As for the question,
Yeah, I think there's going to be more in the future.
Yeah.
But it's about like hitting these waves.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a really good talk, and you can find it online pretty easily. Second, for the question, I wonder if you could go a little bit more in depth about about your production cycle and how it's kind of evolved over the 8 years you've been making the game. Have you found, like, what ways have you found to try and make that production cycle more efficient as you've gone? How's that going to inform the next game?
Oh my God! Yeah, Jesus. We started so haphazardly. I had no idea. I didn't know the words art pipeline.
Sounds right. That checks.
So, and we still have issues with our art pipeline. But when I started editing levels, I was doing it with X and Y coordinates on paper. And we like built a visual level editor. And then we like built an even cooler one. In a lot of ways, our pipeline, by nature of like the way the game was made, has stayed the same. Still using 2D Toolkit 8 years later, or 7 years later, whatever it is. But like around us, the tools have evolved. So now Unity has native 2D sprites, which we use for everything since X date in EarthNight X mode. And it's like way simpler. Almost all of our frame rate issues were from garbage collection. We make a lot of garbage. I don't know if you guys noticed. There's like a million scraps all over the dragon. It's all a bunch of garbage. So I said at a show one time, like, oh, like, it's a game about cleaning up. You're like cleaning stuff off these monsters back. Spoiler, guys, one of the secret endings in EarthNight is if you don't ever stab a dragon. Even one stab will ruin this. But if you were to complete the game as a pacifist, there might be an ending about what you're actually doing. One of the true endings. So garbage collection, and we're still using like old garbage collection and just like the wizards at Plastic Burn Studio that somehow got our game to run at high frame rates. But so like next time around in 2019, Unity has incremental garbage collection, which I think will, and just like I know that 5 years from now devices will be so powerful, just like there won't really be hitches. So as long as we're reasonable with our code base and reasonable with our art, which we'll probably be very unreasonable with our art, especially next time around. Considering how unreasonable we were this time.
So high bar.
We've been so excited for years to just use the tools that are current. We can't use nested prefabs and everything, which is like a standard thing. And I guess I think we did a pretty good job of not taking things to completion that didn't end up in the game, except for Waterworld. But just, next time around, before something gets inked, painted, too far down, it's like we need to be 100% positive, okay, this is actually going to be in the game.
Is there any chance you might consider finishing scrap content for DLC?
Finishing what?
So any sort of scrap content you had that you would have really liked to make it into the final game, is there any chance you might finish it and add it in for DLC?
Yes. We are contracted with Apple to have 3 updates over the next 3 years. They'll be coming out, I guess, in May of each year for the next 3 years. And we're gonna do some fun stuff, and hopefully get into the stuff that got left in the cupboard before.
That Waterworld sounds really interesting.
Yeah, Waterworld was cool, but it was a pain. It's really not even on the list. The next game we're certainly gonna have water. Water's. Water's.
Can you talk more about the art pipeline? You were talking about there's an animator who did the black and white, and Dave, or Paul rather.
Oh yeah, I just the most basic step through process of how things in EarthNight were created. Generally, either inspired by the art or from a mechanic of how an enemy would work. But a lot of times we were art inspired to be like, okay, this is what an enemy looks like what's he gonna do in game, what's she gonna do? And then how would that interweave with other enemies to work to build a world of enemies? So then after we kind of decide okay, here's what it does, then there'd be some sketches of it by Paul Davey, the main artist. And then we would kind of all talk about, okay, well, what actually needs to be animated? What sequences does something have to be? Zach just posted a real cute thing called Dick Bar sequences on Facebook.
Yeah, it's in that.
Yeah.
He's posted on this week. Shout out to Zach Cohen.
Our 2D animator from Israel. You can follow him on the internet. He's been posting all these cool step throughs of things. So then we decided, okay, these are the animations we need, and then Zach would ink them in black and white. Paul would hate on them, and then deliver some key sketches. We're gonna do this, and then Zach would grumble, and then he'd look at me, do I have to redo it? And I'd be like, yeah or no. And then once we put those black and white sketches, we always would go in the game and we would test them and be okay, these are good, we like them, they all work great, fully functional, and then Paul would ink every single frame. It's easy over 10,000 plus frames.
So was Zach using some sort of tweening tool? Was he using Toon Boom or some 2D animating tool?
Flash. Yeah, Zach's a Flash animator.
Flash is dying.
Yeah, well, he likes all the limitations of the tool, which is a theme for us. Chipocrit made all the music with Game Boy, and that, he likes the limitations of the Game Boy chip. It only has 4 channels, and they each do a very specific thing. Some of our end game animations were made in Spine. The EarthNight Dragon is a Spine animation with thousands of individual moving pieces. Each of us have feathers or individual pieces that animate. Crazy. A skeleton with hundreds of bones.
Validation pages on our first game's books, but
Right,
their
yeah.
first game.
Yeah, we always just like got in over our heads. I always got pushed by Paul to do crazier things. We always joked about how like the final boss of the game is like the final boss of making the game because it was this huge pain. It had thousands of pieces. They were all individually animated. We ended up like trying to make these Project M videos that we heard you could do like a video with transparency. We like never got that to work, and then eventually we were like, shit, like this is never gonna work. Like what are we gonna do? And we reached out to like an animator friend, right? Like reached out to like every time we were at a spot where we were like, how do we do this? What are we gonna do? We would just like reach out to everybody we knew and ask. And most people were always just like, oh yeah, we'll tell you. Cool. And then we kind of just like take the best advice we could and did it. And the best advice we got for that animation was using a thing called Spine. We did it. It worked. Works on all platforms. It's great.
Very performant.
Yeah, very performant. Yeah, but so just like the art pipeline kind of changed over time. But the basic pipeline for most of the art in the game was okay, make a sketch of it. Okay, put it in the game. Okay, is that cool? Oh, it's not. It's changed a little bit. Okay, cool. Okay, paint it. And only a few times did I throw away painted frames, which everyone got very angry about. But it has to be done. It's your job as a director. We talk a lot about. We started off more as a co-op, and then over time, I kind of took on more of the director's role, and we just really think it's really important to have, at the end of the day, one person who kind of just like can make those final decisions. And then people can be upset about it, and they were, that's okay. Because that's how you just have that singular vision, direction of that final game. Which otherwise you don't get by committee, I think. That's to the detriment of some games. Corbett, let's go. What do you got?
So you mentioned having help from Apple's specialty house.
Yeah.
But I know you also had a lot of work to do, so to get running on Apple Arcade. So I was just wondering about that process and how it compares to the other platforms.
Okay. So I did PlayStation on my own, which was a complete nightmare, and I will never do it again.
It's still a nightmare, actually.
It's still, yeah, it's okay. Well, but that's not like the submission process or like any of the TRC requirements. So there was like, actually I had, I ended up having like eye problems because I was just reading these documents. They're like small text. I eventually started zooming in, just like these hundreds of page documents, things called TRC requirements for PlayStation 4. And like going through this crazy process, we're about to do it, where you upload your build, do a thing called Skeev's Silver Bullet, and once you do that correctly with like your MDT filled out and like all these numbers have to match and all your keys have to be good, then you get access to gems. Then you go into gems, and you like FQA your build it. Hopefully we'll get access to gems tomorrow, guys. So that was just this like huge pain. Oh my god, this is a nightmare. And we did it, although we never got approved by PlayStation. We got home from E3 after like the Apple deal, and we were all still like working on the PlayStation build. And I remember the day we were saying like, should we just stop? Like, should we work on Apple? That's crazy. Like, what are we talking about? But okay, so Apple I think was actually a way harder process, just because it had to be on all these devices, and we internally had to like develop all touch controls and do tons of the work. But the company we were working with had a lot of expertise in, submitting things to Apple and handling all of that. So like all of the really hard like stuff that I would hate to do was done for us, which was amazing. And I had some experience because all of my like prior games that I've released were iOS apps. And now like we're working with this other company now who helped us with Switch, and we're helping us finalize PS4. And look, and we were talking about today, like, it's like all coming down to us at the end. Like, what are we paying them so much for? But for the most part, they've just like been very helpful. But it doesn't mean that once this happens and you have a company helping you do these things, it doesn't mean you're not working like a madman. You have help, you have somebody who has expertise, and you have more people who know more people who they can go ask those questions to. So unquestionably, like getting launched on Apple Arcade, which is a new thing, unprecedented, where you had to be on iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, Mac. They all had to cloud sync together. They all had to sign together. You know, it was this just huge pain. We saw that across all the other games that were doing it, but it wasn't as hard for me personally because I had and I guess Steam is by far the easiest, not even close. And Nintendo's pretty cool because instead of all these tiny documents where it's like been clearly translated from Japanese and you're like, it doesn't make sense. I can't tell you how many times it's like, do this exactly like this. And I'm like, okay, I just did it exactly like that. And then I get an email like, you did it wrong, do it like this. I'm just like, but I did exactly what you said. That was across all the platforms. I think translation issues, I guess, but Nintendo is warm and bubbly. There's like Mario welcoming you, and Reggie Fowles is like, welcome to Nintendo. They're making a Nintendo game. That's exciting. Yeah, it is. And I just like don't really know anything about Xbox. We have an audience member who released the game on Xbox. So we could.
I don't know how to compare it, but it sucks.
It's a pain. It's definitely a pain. I mean, it's made for large companies to deal with, right? Like that's the deal. And we're 8 or 9 people, but we're really only like 2 people. I guess now 3. Executive Assistant Wyatt, crushing, who are working on that. It's just a lot for a very small group of people to handle.
So what actually is the size of how big did CleaverSoft get? Are you as big as you have been, or are you shrunk at this point? Will you grow for the next project?
Yeah. So we talk about this all the time. We had kind of staffed down because we thought we were like leaving our offices and going home and having no money. And then like at its peak when we were like working on Apple and Switch simultaneously, we got bigger than we'd ever been. It was like 24, 25 people working on the game. But, and this is just like a key lesson that I didn't know months ago, it's all about these specialty houses. Like instead of hiring an extra person who's maybe going to work for 6 months or something, and then they're redundant or not needed, you can just hire a specialty house who's got 4 or 5 people working there, who all do exactly as a team and already know what they're doing to do that thing. And then you only hire them for 2 months. And you're not putting anybody in a bad situation where like you're only hiring them for a little bit. I have a note on my phone called Secret Team, which is like the team for the new game. We're going to be Steven Universe reference, right? Secret Team. Yeah. We're going to be slightly bigger for the next game, but we're going to really intelligently, like slowly staff up over time, and then like hire some specialty houses when we need them, and then right back down. We're going to attempt to be more intelligent about that than we were the first time.
Do you think the specialty houses are really just key when you have porting platform challenges, or would you use them at other stages of development?
I'm now definitely, so absolutely key for porting and platform deals, right? Because instead of me learning my way for 3 months through the PlayStation TRC documents, they just did it for 15 other games.
Right.
So they're like, oh, like we know about that. And like we're even friends with another porting house who like, they just did it for 25 games. And so like, right, like these, that's just like a huge thing. Like, but yeah, no, next time around, instead of like spending 2 months of us like learning something from scratch, like why not hire a specialty house for 2 weeks to just do that for you, whatever you need. We're unquestionably, like, during the next phase of development for the next game, gonna, not only when we're finishing the platforms, but like when we hit a roadblock and we're like, okay, we really want to make this whole system. We have no idea how to do it, but we know we have it designed, we know what it is, we can talk about it, we've got it written out. Let's just find somebody whose specialty is that and get them to make it.
Do you think that's an evolution of the gig economy where you've got people just doing a bunch of short contracts, and instead of being that short-term contract person,
Jay,
you
who's
go
the head
and
of
work
Plastic
for a
Friends.
specialty house?
Yeah, why not? So Jay, who's the head of Plastic Friends Studios, did this whole great tweet rant about, okay, let's say you're a good programmer, okay, and you're working on your own projects, you've probably been asked, like, oh, hey, can you program this for me? By like somebody. And then maybe eventually you become a contractor and you're like, okay, I'm going to make my own game on the side and supplement that with contract work and start taking contracts. Well, what happens when now you're getting asked to do more work than you can do? Why not hire a few of your friends and start a specialty house, right? Or like bring them in on it, and then all of a sudden, if your work overflows, then maybe you have a little team, right? Because I call it a rock band a lot. Like we all have our instruments and we all play them, and together as a band we can do something that everybody individually couldn't do. And so for a specialty house, you kind of have a little band, but 2 programmers, a tester, someone who's really knowledgeable about compliance, and then all of a sudden, like, you're set up to do all this contract work. So I think we're going to be seeing more specialty houses like pop up for even doing more specialty things for indies. There's definitely, we're probably going to have a technical artist in-house next time. Like a lot of our special effects in the game were made just by like other random people, and that's a big thing. It's like special effects for indie games. Like your game's done, but here we're going to come add another layer, work with you to add special effects, shaders on top of things. So yeah, I don't know, but I wish I knew about specialty houses earlier.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, like even if it cost $20,000 a month to hire a specialty house to have done that PlayStation stuff, like would that have, even though that's a huge amount of money, would that have saved us money because it took us 3.5 months? Although had we done that, then we would have released earlier and it would have all worked out. But I think something that sounds very expensive, if you really think about it, could actually end up being cheaper than you think.
This isn't so much a game. I mixed up my words. This isn't so much another question specifically about EarthNight, but more just like producing a game in general. What's the process? Like, let's say you already have a game built for one system. What's the process of porting it to another system? Not so much on the business side, more on like the coding and like the actual game itself side.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're like built well enough in Unity, then you like get up and running on a platform pretty quickly. Like we were up and running on iOS like weeks later. We were up and running on PlayStation 4 in a week. But then you have to ask yourself all these questions like, okay, I'm on PlayStation now. All my buttons were for a keyboard. I guess I have to make all new button art. Like, oh, I guess I need to detect if like it's a PlayStation. So then I could like support PlayStation on Steam too. Okay, cool. Okay, what happens when you hit the home button on the PlayStation? Like, ooh, I don't know. Let's find out.
So it's mostly remapping a lot of stuff.
It's just like the whole, all the, on consoles you have to, most things have a thing where you have to show like an autosave icon and a screen explaining that. So like we didn't have one of those before. I was like, okay, I have to do that autosave symbol. There's just tons of things, and they all have lists. Nintendo, you have to be able to handle all the different controllers and like applets. And we ended up finding a thing called Rewired, which we highly suggest for every indie game, really. Rewired for handling like your controller inputs, because that'll handle across platforms really well. For like iOS, it was a huge number of considerations, handling all the different aspect ratios on the screens, doing touch controls. It's just like all those little things. But just getting up and running, like, okay, I've got a PC build, okay, now I'm on PlayStation 4, really just requires access. And they're all gated. You can't even make a PlayStation 4 build on Unity unless Sony gives you that access. You can't make a Nintendo Switch build unless Nintendo gives you that access.
Right, you need the depth.
Yeah. But you also just even need like to get the Unity module. Like that you need. The only way to get that is to like have them be like, okay, hey, your game looks good.
Doesn't learn to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the specialty house in those games, which has been one of my favorite parts.
Oh my god, yeah.
Are you? I know you mentioned it sounded like you put some of your own money into it.
I self-funded the whole game. Yeah, straight up.
Are you able to like I don't need to like pry too much, but are you able to give like a ballpark
on how much the game cost to make?
Yeah.
Prior to the Apple deal, myself not getting paid ever, the game cost $1.73 million to produce over the course of 7.5 years. And I think that like that would be even more expensive in New York. You know, I was paying everybody livable wages, but not extravagantly. With this promise of everyone who was working very hard that they had a percentage of the game. I think for everyone involved, like, could be wrong. This is the first time that like a percentage deal worked out, where everyone is now like receiving royalties from a thing that kind of exceeded expectations. Yeah, I sold my other company for about that, and then had to like split that with my partner and pay taxes. I was saying before, I ended up going from having like hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank account to zero, and even went $80,000 in debt. But when I was going into debt, I had already signed a deal with Apple that, assuming that I could make this deadline, knew that there would be money coming in. Yeah, this year I'm in the 1%. It's weird. Just for a year, I don't think I have. But
average it out over the last 8 years, not so much.
Yeah, well, it's all good. It all has like worked out kind of better than any of us really thought it possibly could have. So, not complaining over here at all.
So, are you concerned about future sales and revenue, or do you feel like a lot more money is like coming up front? So, like you're signing an Apple Arcade deal, you get that money up front, so it almost doesn't really matter how many sales it does later, or is it a little bit both?
It definitely matters still, right? But yeah, the Apple deal was for more. We've already been paid more by Apple than I thought the game would ever do in revenue, and they also continue to pay us over time depending on how much people play it, which is cool. But no, I'm still terrified of review day. We like are sending out press things, and review day is like December 2nd, and then it'll be out December 3rd. And I think I've actually been a lot more anxious about it than I've been letting on. But I had always thought that like that was going to be this like do or die. Like we're going to live or die by reviews. Some people will of Manifold Garden says that reviews don't matter and placement is all that matters. But we found out like on Nintendo, all these like placement things depend on your Metacritic score. Like if you're above 80, then you get into like these very exclusive things. So, and we signed a deal with a Korean publisher who's going to be publishing the game in Japan, Korea, China, and Taiwan, and Hong Kong. And like they were saying, it's like all about the Metacritic score that you get. But the fact that I get to go into this time of like Metacritic scores and first week sales and first month sales without, we all thought we were going to be moving home and working from home part-time, and Nash was going to go back to teaching, and I was going to have to get a job, and instead we're moving into a quarter snow office and already thinking about another game. So a lot of the pressure has been removed, and I think that's unbelievable that Apple did that for so many indie devs. They like saved us. So I'm still worried about it, and the bad reviews are going to like cut me like to my core. But we're gonna, regardless of whatever happens there, we're gonna make another game, which is kind of all you can ask for. Crazy.
And also go easy on devs who sign with Epic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. This like backlash of like Epic devs. That's insane. Like, how if you're an indie game developer and some large company wants to give you a lot of money for your games, like how can you not take that? Right? Like yeah, I don't know. There was a big backlash against Ooblets, and I thought the tone of their like post was not so great. They were like dancing with money or something, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't get the backlash. How do people not understand that like indie devs who are pouring all of their money or their life into something for years, if there's like some large company who wants to remove risk and like take chips off the table, and how they can't take that. And I think it's going to be the model going forward for larger indie games. If you're going to spend millions of dollars making an indie game, I think it makes sense to find some large company who's willing to pay millions of dollars for it to be on the platform.
So with all kind of like the stress and anxiety and just like morale impact of the long development cycle can have, how did you personally deal with it? Like as a company and yourself?
I like somehow didn't have panic attacks with the launch of Apple Arcade. Will said to me 5 weeks before the game came out in Apple Arcade. He was like, "Do you have a therapist?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "You should get one. It's like pretty intense. Like having a game come out, you should have somebody who like knows you a bit like before you crash." So I did start seeing a therapist at his recommendation. I thought it was helpful. I should probably go back actually. I'm still just now like 5 weeks away.
I got therapy tomorrow.
Your therapy tomorrow? Yeah. I don't know. I got sick at times. Just like unquestionably, and being at the top can get lonely. Like, my last company had a business partner. I remember sitting at brunch with like my wife and a friend, and I like got the call and I started getting the texts. At our old business, all of our customers had their credit card data stolen by Chinese hackers. We didn't store any data, so we were like, how did this even happen? And someone had installed on our server where we hosted our site a keylogger and was logging people's like entries. And every single person whose credit card was stolen got used in a week. So like everyone was receiving like, all of our customers were receiving like Chinese packages and like these lawyers making this shit up. My business partner cried for the first time I've ever, sorry Danny, it's not saying, oh God. And I just remember just feeling like so defeated, like, oh my God, our whole business we've spent 6-7 years building up is just like destroyed now because of this. And I had a business partner and we went through it together. We were like married, it was really nice. And for EarthNight, I don't have that. Although I really, in a lot of ways, now consider Nash like my wife.
Is this the proposal?
Yes. But I just unquestionably like being an entrepreneur, being a game dev. Sean Murray gave this great talk, the guy who made No Man's Sky, of how it's my wife really doesn't like the comparison of putting out a video game as like working a channel at all. But I really think it's true. Like it's like taking a big poop and like eventually it comes out. And the process of like getting it out is like really, really hard. It feels really terrible. Yeah, I mean like for her, like having our baby was like the biggest poop she ever took. Like for me, or like the biggest poop I ever took. Yeah, so just like really a lot of high highs and low lows. Like truly, like devastating lows. Like and amazing highs. I like went over a lot of the highs in my like play-by-play, right? It kind of like you don't talk about the lows. Although I did get one low there. I was like, okay, I was down, I was thinking about quitting. I don't know. I have a lot of grit, like personally, built into my code, to my DNA. I don't necessarily. There's been a lot of research talking about like is grit something you can learn, and I guess I fall in the camp right now of like you're kind of like born with your grit. Maybe you could work on it, but my experience has mostly been like people either have that like I'm gonna stick with this and finish it no matter what mode, or they don't. And through just like all the lows, I really did. It was just like no matter what was happening, I would fight to do this and finish this no matter what it took. And yeah, I can't believe I'm jumping in so excitedly to making another video game. But I am. And we've been saying this, like the first 3 years are going to be amazing. And I've been saying like we want to focus more on having fun. Like we got this awesome office in Narberth, and we like set up all these cool video games, and we never played them. We just worked all the time. And so I'm trying to really enjoy the first 3 years, where there's kind of like explosions of creativity, and then knowing that year 4 and year 5 is going to get harder and harder, and then year 6 when we're past our budget will be like the worst, and then year 7, oh my God, hopefully it won't exist. Yeah, the beginning is just so much fun. And then over the course of like when it's really hard and really sucks, you have these amazing highs, because when it's really hard and sucks for you is when things are actually crystallizing. That's why it's hard, because things are more rigid. If you work within systems you've built, and work within like a constraint of time, you're like heading downhill to try and ship. That's the hardest time, but that's when potentially there's high highs too, of people like seeing your almost finished product and being like, oh shit, this is actually really good. It was really hard. I've almost all the entrepreneurs I know have anxiety problems and exhibit stress problems. I think it's just like it's part of it, and you just have to want it, I guess, enough to every time it really sucks and you're down in the dumps and you don't want to keep going. That's just like but and that's why a lot of video games don't get finished or they get shipped early or whatever because the group of people making it ran out of money or hit some roadblock that they couldn't get through. Yeah.
8 long years. You're now in a stable position, about to take another big risk.
I'm de-risking.
De-risking.
So, yeah, I'm gonna.
But I mean, a new project, there's some risk involved.
Yeah, but I'm attempting to raise money for the project in advance, and I'm gonna give myself salary for the first time. And
I'm sure your wife will like that.
Yeah, she's been cool. She's been very supportive. That's another thing is I have this unbelievable wife. Who has just like supported me through all of it. Like been there for my lows. She was always just like, I think you're gonna do it. And most people, it's funny, like most of my family and friends are all just like when the Apple thing was going on, they were like, oh yeah, we think you're gonna do it. Like you never like not handed in your homework. But they had no idea. Like all the people were like, yeah, we think you're gonna pull it off. Like had no idea what it entailed.
They don't even know the aspect ratio, but 12 inch.
So I didn't find much solace in it because I was like, oh, it's nice that they believe in me, but like they have no idea what they're talking about. But yeah, I have a really good support system. Just like, I remember the day when I came home one day and I was like, Tori, I think if I died, that EarthNight would still get finished. She was like, whoa, that's crazy. I was like, yeah, that is crazy. And the investors, who I'm talking to now, the biggest risk is the key man risk. That like me or Paul Davey or Nash would like get hit by a bus, and then like the investment of some large amount of money is just like worth nothing. Because like our company doesn't have any like, it's just a couple of people. Really, it's weird. Weird, morbid stuff.
So the second half of my comment was pluses or minuses either way of Philadelphia as being where you built this.
Pluses or minuses?
I mean, you were here for family, right? You built your first company here. This is where you were based, so it seemed natural. But now
I'm fourth generation Philadelphia. My daughter's side.
So,
Okay, pluses. There's no AAA studio here, so there was only indies in the indie dev community. When I first started, Cypher Prime was like the head honchos around here, and they really like welcomed us with open arms. When my first time publicly showing the game, GameForge, Will and Dingman was really cool to us. Kind of like came out of nowhere. So that was neat. Just like our office that we have is very cheap, like in comparison to like New York and California. I always said with like any role in the team, it could be anybody anywhere in the world. Paul Davey was in Philadelphia for some of it, like now he's in Paris. The guy who's about to be our new 2D animator on the new game, his name's Sunder. I feel bad, and I don't know what country he's from.
Somewhere on the internet.
He's somewhere. No, he's far, because it's like a 13-hour time difference. Yeah. It's somewhere far away. So, that's cool that it doesn't really matter. But I think, the talent pool is more extreme in California and New York. That's one of the places. I think in a couple of weeks we'll like officially be the biggest game ever out of Philadelphia, which is very cool. And there's not a lot of cities where like a game our size would be that. We're staying for sure. We're moving downtown in a week to Second and Market, not too far from where Second Prime was. I know I sent an invite to you. You should definitely come down once we're all set up, hopefully in the new year. And we're we're not going to be as community oriented as Cypher Prime was. They really did so much for so many people. But we are definitely going to hold events. Once a year we're talking about CleaverFest, where indie devs can come show, and there's going to be like First Friday events down there. So we're hoping to try to give back to the community that helped us so along the way. And I hope we will. I hope we can be like an inspiration for indies to start something in Philadelphia and like be a big deal. And I hope that our next game is going to be like, I love EarthNight, but hey guys, Project Over, it's been sweet. in a decade or something. But yeah, but invitations to everybody to, we're going to have like open house events for sure at the new office. Check out stuff we're working on. We want to see what you're working on. Yeah. But I don't know, Philly, I'm not going to move. I'm just never going to move. We thought about like going to Japan for a little while, Colorado, so Philly for life, and hopefully we can like build something lasting and I don't know, see more big indie studios that are big in Philadelphia. I think it can happen.
Yeah, the Shell Collective has grown nicely. We're at 24 or so steadily.
Yeah, and Fly Clubs is like even more people than that, I think.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
All on a domino game, you love that.
Well, I think we are running. It's coming out soon.
It's
Or is out? Is out?
No, it'll probably be 4 more months.
A few more months. Okay. Mike Ambrogi of the Ambrogi brothers, who made Jamestown, was one of our like most unbelievable feedback sessions.
Yeah, he's a great playtester.
Holy shit! That guy. He just like played our game, just like off the cuff, just like running Stream of Consciousness, and it was unbelievable. Best feedback session we ever had. A Philly guy who, just happy to help. Yeah, we're hoping to be a hallmark of Philly indie dev. We're going to be around for a while. And it's over.